Pleased to report that our borders will be fully opened on October 31st, 2020. We will open our borders to the rest of the world, but rest assured, we will never drop our guard. Lives will be protected at all costs.
With the announcement of the border opening for October 31, 2020, SCASPA moved expeditiously to commence the retrofit work to ensure the safety of all airport employees, passengers, and our community on a whole. The works that you have seen here will be done in two phases.
Phase 1 will see the retrofitting of the arrival area. It will involve the construction of an entirely new section, which will welcome all travelers.
Construction of a welcome center on the ramp of arrivals to house passengers ahead of the medical screening. This involves, as you would see outside, the erection of a 50 by 100-foot tent, transparent, on reinforced wood. Construction of a medical center with an isolation unit on the ramp of arrival. It's next to the welcome center, as you recognize outside, using containers. This facility will be used by the medical team and would also house passengers deemed by the medical team to be of high risk.
Inside the airport itself, the immigration hall and VIP lounge have been completely transformed to meet the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. In the immigration hall, a partition separates travelers. Those awaiting medical screening will be on one side, while regular immigration processing takes place on the other.
A refitting of the arrival VIP lounge. The VIP lounge will be transformed into a medical screening room, outfitted with 4 screening stations and thermal scanning cameras. 5. Installation of plexiglass sneeze guards throughout the airport, including customs baggage hall, the check-in counters, and the counters at the departure gates, just to name a few areas, all in an effort and in an attempt to protect the airport employees.
To further protect employees, vehicular access to the airport will be strictly limited. Only NEOC and SKTA approved taxis and tour buses will be allowed on the compound in limited quantities. This includes private vehicles, whether picking up or dropping off passengers.
The passenger would be dropped off by a relative or taxi, as the case may be. If there's a lot of lines or a lot of people, they will queue underneath the canopy there and then enter into one of the entrances. When you enter, a security officer or customer service ambassador will be there to check your documents to ensure that you have a boarding pass as well as your passports.
While wearing a mask, persons must sanitize their hands and queue in line to check in, either at the counter or using a terminal.
The bags that are going onto the plane would be fogged, so the airlines would have the instrument to fog the bags that are going onto the plane. You can use the elevator or you can use the stairs. After your check-in is done, you proceed up to departures. So we're in the pre-immigration screening hall. Persons will queue 3 feet apart, social distance, and they will proceed to the immigration booth. Now it is my understanding that in 2021 first quarter, the immigration booths will no longer be needed, so that service will no longer be provided. Everything will be electronic. This facility is provided to do any search of any bags. As you can see, it is also protected because they're going to spend a little bit more time with the security officers while they search the bags. And now we're here at the departure lounge. The seating would be tagged, so you would have stickers on them which suggest to the passengers where they should sit or not. And we'll also have physical distance stickers on the floor to guide you in terms of standing. You can see the bar over there has been outfitted with the counters, sneeze guards, as well as the departure counters. They've also been outfitted with the sneeze guards. So you will exit as normal. So the process on the departure side has not really changed as much as with the arrivals. However, some configuration is going to be done to give the passengers more space. And that is what we consider to be phase 2 of the retrofit work.
Security officers will maintain a close watch of all passengers to ensure that the rules requiring the wearing of face masks and the social distancing will be strictly followed. Passengers will be allowed to move around within the departure hall, browsing the various stores.
In the initial phases, we do not expect a great influx of persons, so the space that we have right now should be adequate. The Sky Grill restaurant will no longer be available to the public. The access to it would be from the departure hall, and only departing passengers in the departure hall would be able to access it. Now we're going to capitalize on the height of the departure lounge and create a sitting area above the restaurant when it's created, so that the passengers can sit there, creating more space for persons to wait on their flight. So that's one thing that's going to happen. The other thing that's going to happen, the second thing, is that the screening stations for security would be increased. So we're going to have 3 instead of 2. And the third thing that's going to happen is that the stores that are up here would be relocated to create a seamless flow for passengers.
Sanitizing procedures will be just as robust on the departure side as it is for arrivals. The measures are in keeping with standards set by the International Civil Aviation Organization.
We do have special chemicals that we would have procured on the advice of the CMO, hospital grade, and we have staff members who are designated towards the departure lounge area. In particular, they would have routine cleaning. We have certain standards that we have to maintain, certain ICAO standards where that is concerned. So we're going to have constant supervision of the persons doing the routine cleaning, mopping, wiping of the chairs, etc., constantly disinfecting the commonly used areas and the bathrooms, etc. So the cleaning will be intensified.
We are all in this together.
And we all have a part to play to keep our island COVID-free.
Play your part and stay safe and healthy.
Our borders will soon be reopened. Get ready.
So what are you doing to keep St. Kitts COVID-free?
we will open our borders to the rest of the world. But rest assured, we will never drop our guard.
We have procured certain safety gears for our custodial staff, overalls, the face shields, and so on, gloves that they need to change after every job, etc.
While the staff is continuously being educated on appropriate safety procedures, the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Health are ensuring that stakeholders within the industry are also preparing to keep their workers and clients safe.
The Ministry of Tourism is seeking to train stakeholders in the tourism industry in preparation for the opening of the borders on the 31st of October. And so as part of that training, they have brought together persons from various areas, including tourism, health, and so on, who could facilitate training in order to ensure that persons, one, are compliant with COVID-19 protocols, and two, are ready and prepared to deal with the influx of travelers under this new COVID-19 dispensation, as well as tourism.
Stakeholders who were trained appreciated the efforts made by the relevant ministries.
It has been well received. Persons are asking questions. Persons come, they sit apart, they're wearing their masks, and I haven't seen persons who are against what is taking place. In fact, they've embraced it. Most of, if not all the stakeholders, they love it because then it makes them feel as if they're part of the entire process, which they are, and it will become more so even when the borders are open, because they are essentially being drafted into the team.
Natalie John, the Chief Executive Officer of the Dreamy Group, was one such person who embraced the training from the government.
To give us an idea as to how our world has really changed and what are the things that we need to be able to be aware of, and also to ensure that our staff have proper COVID protocols. And it was really giving you an in-depth overview in each sector. So we had the health personnel discuss the tourism from the airport and the seaport, the impacts of that. We had someone speak with us on customer service, because now you're asking someone to ensure that their mask is on. The staff needs to know that they need to be polite in asking about that. So I think overall, I think it was a very good session. A busy person like myself thought initially spending a half day, but I thought it was worthwhile.
While much is being done to ensure the safety of citizens and residents, it is important for everyone to play their part in ensuring their safety.
If we are to prevent an outbreak and community spread of COVID-19, persons must ensure that they're wearing masks, covering their mouth and their nose. Persons must observe social distancing requirements. Persons must be sanitizing their hands. They must avoid overcrowding. Enterprises must ensure that they have distancing guidelines in place, the signage to alert persons to observe these protocols. And we must remain alert, because it's a new territory we are entering with the opening of the borders.
From the time that we were able to go through the shutdown and we reopened, so we did the 6 feet markings on the floor. We did the sanitizer as soon as you enter. We now have the temperature gun that we have check-in. And you see I'm sporting my branded mask. So we did masks for staff as well. The constant washing. What we're now looking at is trying to get the dispensers, that no-touch dispensers, and we don't have any locally, so we're now trying to source that from overseas to be able to get it done. So I think everybody just has to be able to do their part.
Businesses are particularly encouraged to embrace their role as the borders reopen.
To my colleagues, I know on both sides we are all hurting. The employers are hurting because we have less business. The employees are also hurting because you either not working. I myself had to lay off a good bit of my staff. But I think with the borders opening, as a business person as well as a citizen, it's a toss-up because you want to be safe, but at the same time, you need to have the money to be able to survive, to buy your basic needs and so forth. So I would advise everyone to follow the protocols as much as possible. The washing of hands, the mask.
It was emphasized that an all-of-society approach is needed in the fight against COVID-19.
I don't think this is a time for us to relax at all. I think it's a new normal, and so being accustomed to, maybe if you think you can't do it for how many hours, when you're home on a weekend, try having the mask for as long as you can, because the mind is a very powerful thing, and in what you tell it, you could certainly get yourself to do it. So with us opening, I would say to businesses, as much as possible, provide the staff with as much gear as possible and all the tools needed. And from an employee perspective, follow the new protocols. And I think with that and following those guidelines, we can certainly have a safe place for us to be able to live and work.
The Ministry of Tourism needs stakeholders such as us, because none of us could do it alone.
Some stakeholders have gone much further than simply educating their staff and transforming the work environment. Natalie John has found a way to shape attitudes and practices across the region.
During the lockdown with COVID I was able to start an organization called Caribbean Wedding and Events Professional. I formed this organization, again, not just for us in St. Kitts, but I looked at us from throughout the Caribbean region on a whole. And it is really to support us. And one of the first tasks of the organization was to do COVID protocols for our industry. I encourage any other person who's out there, use the time, if you are already part of an organization, to do your part to help. And if you're not, and you can and you have the time, to certainly look and see what are the areas specific to your industry that you could also do on your own to add into what already government is doing, so that we are able to protect not just the persons coming in, but first and foremost ourselves and the persons who live here.